electricity brought life and progress, and the telephone bridged the distance, people to people reaching each other all around the world, the printing press made information readily available to each one of us. The press contribution to societal growth and transformation is such that Dynamic Living, the Total You, would like to invite you, dear viewers, in the next 60 minutes as we present to you the future of the press. I am very much honored to have with me in the studio now our friends from the KBP. I'd like to welcome our friend from KBP, Tito Monterde. Good evening sa iyo.
Hi, good evening, Jean, and thanks for having me here in your program, Dynamic Living.
At least marami tayong matututunan ngayong gabing ito.
Oo naman.
And of course, andito din po ang ating kaibigan from the CDO Press Club, Mr. Butch Nerio. Good evening po, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Jean, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. So, simulan natin yung usapan natin ngayon na ang press at saka ang KBP, magkaiba yan. And yet, the goal is the same, which is to bring information to either the viewer or to the listener.
Yeah,
Let's start off with you, Tito. Ang sa inyo ba sa broadcasting, would you say na meron kayong papel or role by which you closely interlink or interact with sa kanila sa press?
Oo naman, kami sa broadcast, sa radio and TV, people are getting their news, information, hindi na nila kailangan magbasa. So, napapakinggan nila straight from radio, yung mga balita. And if they want also information, yung music, if they want to be entertained, there's also FM stations which entertain the listeners. So, yung pag-interlink ng dalawa, of course, yung print, there's a different role, pag gusto mo magbasa ng straight news or yung mga columns and editorials, you can get the information from them.
Sa inyo naman, Sir Butch,
Well, we have the advantage when it comes to information dissemination or information sharing because you can pick up this newspaper any time of the day, maski na nasaan ka, mabasa mo yung newspaper, while yung radio, hangin lang yun Pag lumampas na yung sinabi ng radio, ay hindi mo pwede ibalik yun So, kailangan mong maghingin muna ng kopya galing sa radio station bago mo maulit-uli yung nasabi sa radio.
Actually, there's some truth to that, no? Kasi di ba, minsan nga, yung sinasabi nating bahaw na ang balita. There are people who likes to accumulate the print and then they read it one time. Like me, I have this kind of habit na for the entire Monday to Friday, I just store all the papers that I have. And then on the weekend, when I'm not so busy, I start reading it from Monday up to Friday or up to Saturday and Sunday.
But to be fair with the radio,
Yes.
they have the widest and the longest reach when
Mas
it comes
malaki
to
yung naaabot ninyo
Of
information
course, kasi
sharing.
like say, tulad ng sabi ni Butch, yung mga far-flung areas, yung
Naaabot
sa
ninyo.
rural, like sa AM station na hindi kayang abutin if the distribution of newspapers would not reach that particular area, naaabot ng radio, especially yung AM. Pero sa ngayon, dumadami na rin ang mga nakaka-afford na ang mga tao, unlike before that yung mga transistor radio lang kaya nilang mabili. But this time, even sa bukid, even yung mga farmers, they can already afford to tune into to radio, even FM. That's the reason why that even on FM now, we have already news on FM. Hindi na unlike before.
Nung araw parang panay music pag FM.
Pag FM, music lang. In fact, yun ang palaging tinatanong sa amin during tinatanong ako palagi niyan. Is it bawal, pwede bang mag news and music ang FM? Kasi ang at the back of the mind ng mga tao, akala nila pag FM, music lang yan. Pero walang control ang NTC diyan. It's more about programming. Kung gusto ng FM, so be it. Walang problema. Pwede
So
naman
wala siyang control over that?
Walang control. Ang kinokontrol lang ng NTC is the franchise. Pero with regards to program,
they're independent?
Independent yan. Pwedeng gusto mo mag-music, gusto mo. Kaya the reason why that sumikat itong huli, sumikat ang news and music sa FM na. Nasa
That's
FM
true.
format. And it's
Opo.
very, very clear. May mga high definition yan,
Marami
yung-
kayong naaabot at
Oo
mas
naman.
malawak yung inyong kumbaga base ninyo. So punta natin sa inyo, Sir Butch. Ang press po has been there for a long, long time. Even way back before the FM stations came
Yeah.
about. AM meron na tayo. Did you foresee, yung sa inyo po, like here in CDO Press Club, have you foreseen that na in the coming years, para bang medyo magdi-decline yung ating production, yung ating pagtangkilik ng mga tao on the newsprint itself?
I think that is only a presumption or an assumption because of the advent of the electronic news. Sa makikita nila sa internet, sa website, isang tuldok lang, nandun na yung provider ng information. Pero I don't think so. Because when you have a newspaper, you don't need electricity. So if you rely on your computer, sooner or later, you
Pag
will-
nag-brown out,
yeah.
wala ka nang makikita at wala,
Wala
kang
ka na
mababasa.
makikita at wala ka na mababasa. So it is always convenient to have a newspaper and where to get the news because you can also read between the lines so long as you want to read it. So there is always the advantage of the written words, ika nga. Because
Pero would you say, Sir Butch, na hetong pag-aano ngayon ng sa KBP, no, yung sa kanilang sa TV and news broadcasting nila, has it impacted the way people perceive now on getting a copy of the print?
Oh yeah, I think it is symbiotic. I mean, we help each other because what's in the newspaper is being used by the radio. What they broadcast on the radio also is being used by journalists. So, ika nga, there are journalists who practice on the desk, the desk. I call them desk journalists. They just listen to the radio, on the radio, and then write the news. So, without even trying to verify the sources of information. So,
Merong mga ganyan talaga.
merong
din.
ganyan,
May ganyan
yeah.
talaga, Tito.
Yeah.
And
So it is very convenient. It is really very convenient to have a radio alongside, especially when you write a straight or a breaking news, so that you can always compare what you get from your source and what the radio is saying about the breaking news.
How do you both handle, like ang press and you in the TV and the broadcast industry, how do you handle training of your people in order for them to become responsible in the way they broadcast the news, when they bring it out, or when they print it? Let's start with you, Tito.
Before answering that, sasagutin ko muna yung sabi mo, if we feel na nagkaroon na din ng decline
Yes.
sa listenership with the advent of
Hetong SMS o yung
itong,
social media.
social media, digital media.
Yeah.
Na feel in the 80s, there was this song which came out in 1979 and nag-debut sa MTV Music Television in August 1 of 1981. It's a song called Video Killed the Radio Star by a British group, The Buggles. So nag-debut siya 12:01 in the morning of August 1, 1981. And the message of the song, Video Killed the Radio Star, it's the end of radio. Sabi nila na baka ito na. The listeners will stop listening to radio and because of the popularity of MTV, especially during the time after nag-debut yung song na yon, lumabas na rin ang mga MTV ng late Michael Jackson, the King of
Yes.
Pop. So, a lot of people were saying, kami din, we felt, because I joined radio in 1983. So, hope it doesn't show my age. Pero, ang nangyari noon, akala rin namin na baka ito na ang katapusan ng radyo, no? But we proved them wrong. Radio is still very popular, but, of course, nagkaroon na rin ng hindi na katulad before. I can say na yung heyday ng radio was in the 80s and in the 90s.
Not in the 2000s.
Hindi naman.
20s
Hindi na masyado kasi ang dami ng competition. In fact, the listeners can like a young boy or young girl, yung mga young people, they can do their own playlist. They don't need to wait to
That's
call
true.
up the radio station and
Make a
listen to
request.
make a request and listen to their favorite song. Hindi na. All they have to do is one click of a finger, you can open YouTube or you can download
then you
it on
just
iTunes
download,
and you
yes.
just download it. You can do your own playlist. Pero ang sinasabi ko, even sa mga bago naming mga DJs, sabi ko, why is it that people still do listen? The listeners do still listen to radio because hindi nila nakukuha sa YouTube or sa digital media yung interaction.
At saka hindi lang interaction, Tito. It's connectivity.
Connectivity, yung maririnig mo yung pangalan mo, ginigreet ka on the air. Siyempre may ibang feel
Dating
pa rin yun,
yun,
may ibang kilig pa rin na naririnig nila. Like say they want to say hello or to their crush, mga ganon. Wala sa except on Facebook, no? Pwede ka lang pero iba pa rin yung sa radio. So the reason that until this time sikat pa rin yung mga program na mga Dr. Love or mga I had a program before in the 90s. I called that program Dear Tito M, wherein they can share their love stories, they can share their yung kanilang mga problema, and we give advices. So
So in other words, hindi mawawalan kayo ng inyong sariling followers.
Hindi
Kasi
pa rin.
ano siya kumbaga tatak na siya ng isang
Exactly.
tao. And you're really a part already. Kung sila si Sir Butch, kasali kayo on a morning. No? Diba? Pagka umaga,
breakfast.
ang mga tao, pag nagbe-breakfast, dyaryo yung hawak. Kasama din kayo doon.
Of course.
Na habang nagda-drive ka, papunta ka sa trabaho, naka-tune in ka doon sa radio.
Yun ang kasama mo,
Opo.
nakikinig
So,
ka.
ang next ko naman,
Pero nawawala na yung Mr. DJ, can I have a request?
aha. So,
andyan
nawala
pa
na
rin.
daw.
Of course,
nandyan pa rin yun.
Andyan pa rin.
Nandyan pa rin pero iba na yung linggo nila.
Aha.
Huy, pwede ba? Ano mo yan? Well, anyway.
So let me go back to the question I asked both of you. How can you, I mean, does you sa Press Club and you sa KBP have trainings for your people in order for them to be trained una on ethics, on the way they handle the news, the way they present it, they bring it out, and number two, on being responsible enough to make sure that the news, whether it's in print or whether it's over the radio or on television, that these are credible, these are reliable, these are not really sensationalized. And how do you go about it? Please, sir.
It's very timely because the last week of May, we will be celebrating press freedom. So the Cagayan de Oro Press Club will be holding a series of lectures and reminders for media people to follow ethical standards and how to gather information, how polite you should be when you're with the sources of information. So I think it is very timely because we will be conducting, and it's always there. Every now and then we remind ourselves, we remind each other, each one of us, that we should not do that, we should not do this, because it will be out of bounds, because we all have our set of policies and ethical standards.
So how do you police your ranks if that's the case?
Sometimes we become blunt. We become blunt with each other. So ikaw, talaga mali yung ginawa mo. Kasi why do you have to insist your opinion, and why do you have to put words in the mouth from the source or from our guests? So there is always that check and balance among us. But then we cannot avoid, but there's the perfect organization anyway. But there are those what we call house show, the fakes in journalism. So that's one thing that is trying to put us down, and we want to, because in the early 70s, when I was very young, maybe younger than Tito, I used to look up to journalists as somebody very, very dignified. So it's gone now, because I can feel when you go to offices for an interview, when they ask where I work, I say I'm from media, there's always that kind of
Hesitancy.
hesitancy. you
And
know?
the distancing na
Oh,
baka
yeah.
mamaya
Oh.
iba yung ilalabas niya, hindi yung kung ano yung
Yeah.
tinanong niya sa
Yeah,
akin.
and that is why hopefully maybe we can check, we can address the condition, and we can somehow maybe minimize the existence of house.
Okay. What about sa inyo naman, Tito?
Well, sa KBP, kasi ang kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas, we police our own ranks. The reason why that before you can talk on the air, before ka pwedeng obere, you must be an accredited member. Meron ka accreditation. So, the reason why that annually we're doing accreditation exams, yung mga bago na pasok na mga broadcasters, it's either TV or radio, talagang dadaan. So, myself as the KBP Standard Authority now, we're so strict, especially na may mga bagong pasok. Especially, ang problema namin dito, in Cagayan de Oro, not only in Cagayan, but in other areas, yung mga black timers. Because, syempre...
Pag sinabi niyo pong black timers,
Black timers, ibig sabihin, hindi sila connected with the radio station. Sometimes they're hired. Hired sila ng mga politicians, hired sila ng just to...
Sponsors.
so they're
may mga
their own
sponsors.
sponsorship.
And their sponsorship. So, kaya during the program, may disclaimer yan na yung mga
Sinasabi niya, opinion
yung mga
sa kanila lang yun.
and sa kanila lang yun, not including yung station. But the problem, especially kung nitong huli, bago tayo nagka-eleksyon, talagang matindi yung tirahan, So, we always point out to the station managers to remind the black timers on the Article 6 of the KBP Broadcast Code. Kasi meron kaming broadcast ethics. So, sa Code of Ethics, we're very, very strict with that. Of course, hindi ka pwedeng yung out of bounds. Basta tira ka lang ng tira or titirahin mo na we keep on reminding them, you just talk about the issues, not the personalities na talaga yung personality titirahin mo, So
Kasi there's a difference between an issue and a personality.
Of course,
diba?
of course.
So pero ang ano po niyan kasi they always say that your freedom to speak that is guaranteed by the Constitution. Pero this freedom also has its bounds.
Of course, it's not
And-
absolute.
At saka ito, inaano ninyo ito sa inyong mga kasamahan sa industry.
Yeah,
Freedom goes with it awesome responsibility. That is why I've been asking the broadcasters, especially the black timers, to self-regulate. And because without that self-regulation, you go out of bounds. You call yung opponent ng sponsor mo na you call them names already. So that is why I think majority of those killed came from broadcast.
Not so much on the print.
No,
So
Not so
in,
much.
in
Not
terms
so
of let's talk about the protection of the industry by itself sa media at saka sa broadcast. Do we have the protection from the government na heto kayo, you're just bringing in the right information, and yet we find that in the Philippines we have the highest number of our people, our colleagues in the industry who are either harassed or maybe their lives are taken away.
Well, there's always that protection equal with everybody because we have law enforcers and we have laws. And it's supposed to be we are men of laws. So we are not. The media has no special protection with this government, with our government. We have a system that everybody goes, anything goes, and anybody can say anything without even trying to follow some ethical standards. But then, I think our law enforcers are doing their jobs, but we also have to watch out because anything can happen. Even
So
in
would
other,
you say,
in
sir,
other
na,
countries.
so would you say, sir, na there's that hazard of the trade, so to speak?
Yeah.
Part of the trade is the
Especially
hazard.
when you're dealing with some kind of hot issues or some kind of very like smuggling, politics, crimes, and especially when you are so deep already. So anybody can get you.
Yeah, that's very sad nga, no? Kasi mas safer pa nga ang sa print kasi pwede mo i-edit, no? Pwede i-edit yung the problem with the broadcast.
sinabi mo
pag
na.
sinabi nila, hindi mo na
Una,
pwede
pwede bawiin.
hindi mo pwede bawiin yun eh. Pag meron kang kaya ang dami mga nalalibel, ano? Kaya nga just recently we suspended 2 black timers because yung violations were grave, ano? Yung talagang it's very clear on code of ethics, sabi nga personal attacks against fellow broadcasters strictly prohibited. Pero sila ang nagtitirahan. So ang nangyayari parang nag-away-away lang. And then sabi nga namin you know already yung guidelines, yung direction, bakit you keep on violating it? So dapat hindi nyo ginawa yon kasi nga alam nyo namang mali. With regards to protection naman,
Yes.
mas marami ang ano doon, nakakalungkot doon kasi mas marami ang pinapatay na taga-broadcast kaysa sa print. Di ba? Kasi syempre, may mga libelous statements, yung mga tinitira nila, syempre, di mo naman yung kung sinong tinatamaan, ano? So, pwede ka naman. The reason lumabas nga yung mga issue na if broadcasters pwede bang mag-carry just to protect themselves, carry their own, carry
Their own,
guns,
guns,
firearms. Yun ang medyo nakakalungkot kasi
It is not supposed to be like that.
hindi dapat gano'n, hindi dapat gano'n. Kasi there are some broadcasters, babalitaan natin, even pagpapasok doon sa radio station.
Tinitira sila doon.
O doon sila binabaril, pinapatay. So, yun ang nakakalungkot.
Pero in terms of liabilities naman po, like for example, sa print and saka sa broadcast, do you have liabilities in terms of, like for example, legal issues? For example, pwede ba kayo idemanda? Pwede ba kayong
naman.
And who protects you? Kayo lang on your own? Or is it the organization itself?
Well, we somehow, the press club somehow helped to lend a hand or some kind of support if ever we have a member who will be charged with libel. So, hanggang dyan lang kami. Pero when it comes to providing lawyers, hindi na namin
Hindi na ninyo
kaya
yun.
yun.
Uh-huh.
Hindi na namin kaya yun. Pero if our members will be charged with libel or charged in court for some misdemeanor, ang problema lang dyan kasi kung meron ba siyang outlet or corporation or company na tumutulong sa kanya. So, but the problem is kanya-kanya na eh. So
wala kung kumbaga you're on your own.
Yeah, we are on our own.
That's why it has to be kumbaga it has to be inculcated in their minds na they have to be responsible enough with what they're going to print or what they're going to say on broadcast.
Exactly. Kaya we keep on reminding them, especially among black timers, ano? Na you should be very responsible kasi kayo din tatamaan yan pag na-libel kayo, di ba? Kayo makukulong yan. So, kung pwede kayo protektahan ng station, ng network nyo, swerte. Pero, kasi responsibility, that's why me as the Standard Authority officer ng KBP, I keep on reminding all the station managers, it is your responsibility to remind your staff, yung mga announcers nyo, na freedom is not absolute.
Yeah.
Tapos dapat responsible kayo. Kung meron kayong titirahin on air, just stick on the issues. Huwag niyong sabihin. Kasi kung sasabihin niyo yung babaero or ito si ganyan, wala ka namang proof. Wala kang proof na
So don't hit below the belt.
Don't hit below the belt.
Yun yung
Dapat issues
nun.
lang ang pinag-uusapan. Kung meron kang then stick to the issues.
Stick to that, no? Kasi
Yeah,
yun
doon
lang
ka
naman ang gusto dapat
Doon ka
nating
lang.
malaman.
Kasi alam mo naman kung hanggang saan yung libelous na sinasabi mo.
Yeah.
So paano po yun? Paano po yun? What are sa inyo po sa print media? Let's talk about the print media. What is the future of print media sa tingin niyo po, Sir Butch?
Very bright. Yeah, very bright. Actually, as I've said a while ago, it is really nice to play with words, especially the written words. So when you are in print media, you can always, sabi nga ni Tito, you can always edit and you can always rewrite to suit the readership or what the readership likes, you know. So ang problema ngayon with the coming of the electronic media, it's not really a problem, but rather mag-i-evolve yan eh. Kasi sabi nga nila, oh, meron ng internet. I don't buy newspaper anymore because every time I open my computer, madali lang, andyan na yung news. But then, no. Come a time that you will have your newspaper with you wherever you go.
But would you say na ang mga kabataan, as young as they are now, should be encouraged really to read the print media?
I think so. I
It
think
should
so.
be made a part of their habit and part of the values that they have.
You sure? Yeah, because without media, ano tayo? Wala tayong alam. So kailangan nandyan pa rin yung media, ma-print man, ma-broadcast o ma-e-media, electronic media. Kailangan nandyan pa rin yung media para alaman natin, makakuha tayo ng information in order for development.
Sa inyo naman po sa KBP, what is the future and what are the changes that you see happening for the broadcast?
Well, ano yan, Gina, no? Whether we like it or not, papunta tayo sa ito na digital media. Kaya nga, pwedeng maraming medium na, pwede mo pakinggan ng radyo, napapanood mo sa TV, ano? Pwede doon ka nalang manood live, online, ano? But ang hindi na ang when I compare it from the 90s, ano, sa ngayon, ang affected na rin. Not as lucrative as before. Especially yung, before naalala ko in the 1990s when we started our broadcast here in Cagayan de Oro, halos hindi kami makaka-play ng music.
Sa dami
Puro
ng
commercials, dami ng
commercials.
commercials. Ngayon, ilan na lang. Kasi admittedly, ang lion's share nakuha na ng TV. I don't have the yung statistics but ang lion's share, ang sharing yata na sa mga 80 to 90. 80% TV.
TV na.
And 20% sinishare pa ng print yan, sinishare ng radio, may billboard pa, mayroon pang. So, pakonti ng pakonti. But ang maganda lang dahil we're still alive. If you notice here in Cagayan de Oro, we started here in 1991. Ano lang kami, 4 FM stations. Kaya
Ngayon,
we are
marami-rami
already
na.
13 na kami. And this, we have about 6 AM stations, 3 TV. So, ang dami na namin. Ang dami na. Tapos, pinaghahati-hatian namin yon sa yung advertising share. So, admittedly, talagang hindi na katulad nun.
But then there is still
Andyan pa rin.
we look at it as it will stay
Industry, as long as human being is existing, media is there.
Yes,
Kasi,
that's true.
alam mo, doon natin kinukuha yung entertainment. Doon tayo kumukuha ng news. If we want news...
And opinions.
Information. Sa media galing yan. But of course, katulad ng sinabi ko, digital media is very much alive. Young people, MP3, MP4, ang
Andun na lahat.
daming mga
Daming gadgets,
kahit saan, ang daming gadgets, ang dami mong pwedeng pakinggan. Even sa radio, ang dami ng sa online. Uso ngayon yung mga radio online, napapanood mo yung mga DJs. Yung mga
But then,
Mosimo Radio.
what we can say is, kagaya ng sinabi ni Sir Butch, you are there to stay, di ba? Kasi we
Yes.
are always part of who we are and where we're going. We'll
Absolutely.
take a very short break, and when we return, we will be joined by other guests here so that we can continue on discussing what is the future and where is our press going. Please stay tuned to Hope Channel.
Nowadays wala na sir kay kuan man more on sa Facebook naman ko sa internet, sa Facebook, magtanaw og mga latest news. Masay maka-watch kaya po ng TV ya pa sa.
Dili kay ko kapalit og newspaper.
Dili. Kay usay magkuha naman ko sa TV kung makikita ko so murag okay na ko. sa among office na maghatagan og newspaper.
Di ko kayo gapalit newspaper kay kasalig ko sa TV sa tanaw sa balita.
Oh, yes sir. Kay ang newspaper, mas accurate ng iyang mga news ba kayo?
Posible. Siyempre, naman national nga newspaper.
For me, still, in terms percentage, sir, 70%.
Source gapon kay na may mga information po nga dili ma-cover sa TV nga nasa newspaper.
Sa TV kay na at aside sa na yung mga kuan ka ng videos, napoy ka ng mga testimony po sa tao mismo nga nakuha na victim or
Mas sadam to sa TV, pero ang problema lang karon kay daot mo TV, so ang nitabo, cellphone or radio again.
Sa TV. Kay mo naman ang most good ka ng everyday, murag na daily routine na siya ba?
Para nako, okay gihapon gid ang newspaper. Kay imo mang makip good.
TV ra ko, balita. Sa moabli ko sa internet.
Welcome back to Dynamic Living. The Total You is our episode, The Future of the Press. Ngayon naman po, kanina kasama natin ang ating mga kaibigan sa KBP at saka sa CDO Press Club. Ngayon naman, nandito kasama ko si Mr. Leonides Jack Biantan. He is the Sunstar General Manager. Welcome to Dynamic Living, sir.
Good afternoon or good evening or whatever.
Alright. And of course, kasama din natin ang isang journalism and mass comm instructor at Liceo de Cagayan University. We have Sean Uy. Welcome to Dynamic Living, Sean.
Good evening, Doc.
And of course, napaka-interesting ng ating discussion. Kung nakikinig kay kanina sa KBP at saka sa ating kaibigan sa Press Club, alam naman natin talaga na press, lalo na pag-print, is still, something that everybody should have it in their hearts to avail of, di ba? So, matanong ko naman kayo, sir, kayo, pag sinabi nating press, ibig ba sabihin nito, sir, heto yung ating kasama, kasalo natin tuwing nag-aagahan tayo?
Yes, but the print media is a dying industry. That's what I have known. Not really. It's not an opinion. That's the
way.
The way it is now. It's a dying industry. A lot of newspapers in the States have closed down because of the competition with the what they call this social media. But what is good is now about it now is that we conducted a survey in Sunstar, specifically in Cebu, who among what's the age, sino ang nagbabasa pa ng dyaryo. The survey dramatically said that people who are 49 and above are the only ones reading the newspaper right now. So
ibig sabihin tayong dalawa lang nagbabasa noon. Si Sean hindi na.
So majority of the people from 48,
Down.
49, 50 and up are the ones only reading newspapers. So we're still lucky at this moment because we still have an audience, even that small, but we still have an audience. But what about 10 years from now?
Have you foreseen that, sir? Like, for example, you've been in the media industry for quite some time. You have been in the print, so kumbaga sa dyaryo talaga kayo. Did you foresee that there would be a decline in the need for print media?
I foresee that a long time ago. I'm an observant in the print media. I didn't foresee it until Facebook started operating in the mid-2000. Everything changed when Facebook came. So without Facebook, we would be still very much...
Reading the
everybody would
newspapers,
still be
everybody.
reading newspaper.
Puntahan ko si Sean. Sean, you're a younger generation than the two of us here. Of course, don't count our ages anymore. So masasabi mo ba na yung decline ng print media na yan, ng paggagamit at pagbabasa, has something to do not just because of the entry of the social media, kundi by the way the young people, the millennials, are reacting towards the way they gather information?
I've been teaching for a total of 14 years. Yun ang decline kasi. When I was still in college, nagbabasa talaga kami ng newspaper. because part ng assignment, part ng ano. But now, when I started teaching, medyo mahirap na yung the younger generation. I really don't like to brand them as millennials or anything. Yung younger generation, medyo nagdi-decline kasi they have this culture now na nasa internet na or electronic na talaga. And of course, the yung mga ano natin, like mobile phones, laptops, internet, it's pretty much easy to get those, the gadgets. So, on the go. People are always on the go, especially the younger generations. Ayaw na nilang
Bit-bit pa.
text. Bit-bit
Ayaw
ng
nila ng
newspaper.
pagdating babasahin pa nila.
Parang parang it's a hassle for the younger generation.
So how do you teach your students in order for them to be able, to again have that culture of reading the dailies?
Actually, I ask them to read. I don't really ask them, I command them to read. Kasi whenever they have assignments, hindi ko pinapahanap sa internet. Kasi mas madali silang mahuli sa internet eh. If you copy-paste, mas madali mong mahuli. But if you have the newspapers, like say for example, local newspapers here, madali nilang makuha yung content because all the details are there. Of course, because those sources are verified. Lahat-lahat na, nandun na talaga. Because it's mga journalists talaga ang gumawa. And kung sa internet nila kukunin, parang
Kahit
it's
sino
not
lang pwede namang mag-post
kahit sino
dun
pwedeng maggawa ng
balita lang,
quote-unquote
so to speak.
news.
We have a program in Sunstar to go and disseminate information and teach people, especially young people in universities and colleges, how to appreciate newspaper, what is the advantage and disadvantages of reading newspaper, and why is it still relevant to read newspapers nowadays?
I like that word, sir, you said, relevant. Di ba? Kasi dapat relevant siya para maintindihan nila at bakit kailangan nilang gawin.
Yeah, because first of all, people who write newspapers are real journalists. So they're not just ordinary people. They are hired by the companies, journalism, newspaper companies like Sunstar. They're hired, paid, and they're responsible for what they read, about what they write.
At saka na-i-edit ninyo yan,
And
sir, di ba?
then things are edited. You go to internet, you go to Facebook, anybody could write, anybody could. How many fake blogs have you during the past
Encountered,
election?
yes.
How many fake blogs and people in the internet, especially in Facebook, they don't even care to check the
kung
sources.
tama or hindi.
Yeah.
What's the ordinary day in like for example, Sunstar, what's the ordinary day for you? In order for you to be able to come up with a printed material. Like for example, let's start with, anong unang nangyayari? Yung mga tao ninyo, nagre-research sila, they print it, they go through the printing press.
Usually, in the day before that, there's already a plan, editorial, we call it editorial plan already for the next day. So, because things don't just happen.
Yes.
Issues come the day before election. If, for instance, there's an election, there's any issues would come. So the editor would already assign people. So this one will come unless there's a big thing that would happen. So
masasapawan yun.
Masasapawan yun. But usually things are predictable. Everything predictable. And then what we also right now, because of the social media, everything is now, there's no more fresh news. Everything is stale news. Because
parang nauuna pa sila.
Pag may mangyari, diretso na kagad, everybody would know it in the Facebook. So, ang nangyayari, so we cannot wait for news for the people. So, ang policy namin ngayon is the earlier we come out, the better. So, kasi there's no such thing as fresh news anymore. Everything you print, all of them are stale now.
Kasi may nauna pa sa inyo. Is this good or bad, Sean?
Economically speaking, that's bad. Because we rely heavily on the news, diba? Especially if it's printed. Pag nauunahan ka, parang wala namang kwenta yan. Parang nauna pa kaming
So hindi na sila bibili kasi alam na namin yan eh. Hindi na namin
Radio used to be the fastest. No, kasi right then and there you can get it. But now something is faster.
faster than
Faster
radio.
than the radio.
Uh-huh. So how is it? Is it a boon or a bane?
Yeah, it's a bane for the newspaper, but the thing is now is that you have to innovate.
Yes.
So that's the proper word for that. You have to innovate, because if you don't innovate, you die. Just like what happened to Nokia, it didn't innovate, so they died.
It died a natural death, so to speak, na hasten pa nga eh.
Even what they call Friendster. Friendster didn't innovate, it died. So Facebook came, and then everybody is in Facebook now. So you have just to innovate, and then you make stories. You make your stories relevant. So and there's
And interesting.
more
And
interesting.
siguro kailangan makaka-capture niya yung attention. Di ba?
Yeah.
Kahit na doon sa inyo palang mga headings ninyo.
Yeah, headlines, and then there's an interesting. You write more interesting stories, and then you make your stories shorter.
So how do you choose who to write, who would write in your dailies? You have a committee that will screen.
No,
who can-
the editor and the sub-editors, because usually we have a very small staff in Sunstar Cagayan de Oro, unlike Sunstar Cebu, they have I think 30 journalists and editors working here. Here in Sunstar Cagayan de Oro, we have only two editors, and I think three. No. We got 3 editors, and then I think 4 reporters. So it's a very
lean
staff.
number of staffing.
So it's
Is your production, sir, affected by the advertisers that would like to have their products advertised in your daily? Kasi after you answer this, I'll ask Sean a relevant question related to this.
The past several years, I'm just new in Sunstar Cagayan de Oro. I just came last year, June 8. But the past 2 years, they didn't have any managers. I came there to fix everything. Because I know these Garcia people, the one owning Sunstar. I worked for Sunstar Cebu for 10 years before I migrated to London, and then I came back just last year. So the problem is there when I went there. So everything was too many problems. I was hired to fix the problems. Now, what is good now is, as I said, that everything is not dead yet.
So kumbaga, there is a future.
There is a future, because as of this moment, starting this year, our revenue in subscription
Is increased.
has increased to 28%.
Over the past years.
No, from last year. From last year, revenue in what you call this advertising has increased to 38%.
So in other words, you're doing a very good job there. Now let me ask you, Sean, heto bang advertising of course we know that it's one of the bread and butter sa any dailies, no? Pero kasi na-overcome na sila through internet, kasi parang ang internet na mas malakas siya at mas maraming readership. How do you think, ikaw being part of a teaching in the academe, no? How do you encourage your students now to still embrace and find it upon themselves, whether they're doing business later or whether they're going into journalism per se, na kumbaga tangkilikin pa rin nila ito at tulungan and let the press, especially the print media, die a natural death?
That's a tough one. But kung praktikalan lang tayo, I would always encourage my students to engage in advertising. No, kasi nandyan yung bread and butter ng media in including social media and the internet. Advertising talaga dyan. Now, in journalism, yes, but I would say that journalism is more of a calling rather than a profession. Para siyang, kung magpapari ka o magpapastor ka, it's more of a calling. Kasi we don't get a lot of money. Let's be practical. Being journalists, you don't get a lot of money. Now, the real money there is in advertising, in business. So that's why most communication schools are venturing into the business
Sa aspect
the
Of
business aspects
communication.
of communication.
So paano po natin, sir, i-encourage yung inyong mga writers, ang inyong mga researchers to be able to come up with a balanced and non-sensationalized news that they print in your daily?
We have our editors. Usually, the editors are the one teaching them and the one telling them. And talking back about journalism or being a journalist, I always tell my interns when they come for interview, I always tell them, "Are you serious? Do you want to be journalists? There's no money in journalism. There's no money in writing. You want to be journalist? Think about it 100 times." Because a lot of interns, after they finish here, they go to jump shop to work in the, what they call this, the call center. A lot of them call center, because they are paid a lot in the call center. Here, how much you get paid here? But there are still people who are idealists, who are.
And we appreciate them.
Yeah, I
Kasi
told them.
otherwise, if it's a dying breed, makawawa naman tayo, di
So I
ba?
always tell them that journalism is like it's a vocation. It's not actually a career. It's a real vocation. It's like being a priest. You get and it's
So how do
inspiring.
you keep the passion burning for your students? Kasi you're in the academician. So you need to keep that fire
Yes.
burning. Para naman na kahit nasabihin mo pa na i-encourage nyo sila to go into advertising, to go into something else, and yet, we still need them.
Yes. I encourage them, that's for the economic side. Now, kailangan din nilang matuto, sumulat, at mag-appreciate ng sinusulat ng mga journalists natin. It's because that is the product. No? Yan ang ina-advertise natin, the whole paper itself, no? the press. Now, kung hindi mo alam yan, paano mo i-advertise yan? How can you go into advertising also? So, I let them write, and write, and write. Of course, we check. And we have a lot of professors there also na may mga journalism subjects din. And I encourage them also to...
And is part of your curriculum when you teach them and you guide them that they have to be responsible, that they
Yes.
have to
There
be
is
able
always a subject
to,
na may
yes,
ethics.
Ethics,
no?
yes.
May isang subject talaga na ethics in journalism. No? So,
That's part of the
hindi siya ethics in broadcast, ethics in... It's general. No? So, lahat yan. Because everything entails journalism.
It's one
Lahat yan meron.
semester in college.
In college.
Yeah.
And yet, it is sad to note that despite that one semester course, nagkakaroon pa rin tayo ng mga issues na binabato natin sa mga writers natin or broadcasters natin na sometimes they bring in the news in a very twisted
Most
way.
of the time, it's economic reality, because people can be bought.
So what is the responsibility of the press itself para sa
Just to tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
Yeah, that's all.
That's
That's
all.
about
So
tell the truth.
what's the greatest challenge now for the press industry itself? Let's start with you, Sean.
Going back to that, you can tell the truth, but also verify the
Tama.
facts that tell
Kasi
the truth.
mamaya, truth nga para sa'yo, hindi naman siya verified. So, hindi pa rin siya
Oo.
truth.
Kasi
diba?
baka para sa'yo, truth na yun. Pero if you don't have sufficient evidence to back it up, wala pa rin. Diba? I can remember my, on the economic issue, I can remember my thesis when I was an undergrad for MASCOM. It was about envelopmental journalism. Marami talaga mag-i-engage ng envelopmental journalism. It's because they don't get paid well. No? If our economic situation for the press, the radio, the TV will boom, then parang mawawala yun. It's a guarantee na mawawala. Because they have money. Now, having your name printed on the papers doesn't necessarily bring food to the table. Let's be practical. Di ba? So, may iba talaga no, it's a bad practice, no? Pero hindi natin ma-deny that it happens. So, like the Cagayan de Oro Press Club always does check and balance kung sino talaga yung mga gumagawa ng ganyan. And then, of course, may mga sanctions siguro from them. But I always encourage my students never to engage in such. No?
So, in other words, what is the future of the press industry for you? Or how do I put it? Would you say that in 10 or 15 or 20 years from today, the industry of print media will still play a very huge role in the development of society?
For us in a third world country, yes.
Yeah. We're still relevant, but I don't know in the next 10 or 15 years if we will be still relevant. That's why we innovate. That's why Sunstar right now, we are in the process of innovating.
Going online.
Yeah, we are establishing Sunstar online, and not necessarily, we call it Sunstar Pilipinas. It's a long process, and we are online right now. But for how long we are online right now, I think it will be online for a long time. But our paper, this is the paper Sunstar, I don't know for how long we will be around. We will still be around in the Philippines because not a lot of people are online.
Do you think, sir, do you think that the government can help the print media industry so that, it will not become a thing of the past?
I don't think so because it's the trend.
It's the trend, really.
It's just a part of the society.
Sa iyo naman, Sean.
Going back, the government will help. I think media should always be independent. No, kasi sila yung nag-check.
Ng mga ginagawa ng ating mga government officials.
Watchdog talaga natin yan.
So hindi siya dapat makialam at hindi sila dapat, kasi you mentioned something na kung medyo malaki-laki lang naman ang income ng mga journalists natin ito, then they would not be resorting to getting, under the table things so that they can print something that is not really true and
Yes,
correct.
but if the government will interfere, like paying the journalists, that becomes a source of bias.
Yes, that
No,
becomes
magiging
PR.
bias.
So
That's
magiging
PR.
PR na siya,
Yeah,
di ba?
that's PR.
So what do you intend, sir? Like for example, you being in the print industry for quite some time and you foresee that hindi naman talaga kayo mawawala. Aside sa innovations na sinasabi ninyo.
Educate.
Okay.
Educate the new breed of people coming, especially those young students. You have to educate. That's why I told them that don't rely in the internet for information, for entertainment. You can read newspapers. One advantage is that newspaper, we always write the truth here. So because we are responsible, because the newspaper is responsible to the readers, and then if they attack somebody which they just invented the story, they can be sued for libel. In the internet, how many times I've told them, how many times Jackie Chan was killed in the internet? Yeah, they killed Jackie Chan hundreds of times.
And it's not true.
And then everybody believes that
He's already dead.
He's already dead. Just the past election, how many misinformations has come out in the internet, and everybody believes it. And one reason why Duterte won is because of the
In media.
Media.
Yeah,
No,
because
of
social media.
social
Yes,
media.
social media. So how do you now cope daily the threat of being, extinct in the future?
I don't think we will be extinct because right now, aside from we also have a tabloid, newspaper. I didn't bring the tabloid. We have it has more readers than the English newspaper. It's a Bisaya
So
version.
that's one contingency and that's one
And then
innovation.
That's one innovation, and then it outsells all newspapers in Cagayan and even in Cebu because it's all we come out 10 o'clock in the morning and in the evening.
So ibig sabihin nauuna pa nga kayo sa iba.
Kaya sabi ko, pag nakabenta ko sa labas, sabi ko, hindi pa nahuli yung magnanakaw, na-sentensyahan na. Kasi that's how I sell the newspaper. Hindi pa nahuli yung magnanakaw, na-sentensyahan na.
In other words, innovation will always play a role here. What about you, Sean? What are your
with
thoughts
regards
on
to
this?
that, I think most of the newspapers or most of the dailies ngayon, they have targeting kasi yan eh. They have the class A, B, C. No? Pag nasa C market ka, yung mga Bisaya na tabloids or local
Tagalog,
dialect. No?
or
Kasi mas
local
mabetter
dialect,
because
yes.
they parang, ay, English na naman to. Parang, ang hirap basahin. But of course, we also encourage the people to read also English kasi practice din naman yan eh. They can read it. Now, there are market segmented kasi yung newspapers. Some are for business, and then the dailies
Entertainment
talaga,
naman yung iba.
entertainment
Yung iba naman talaga kung
Yung
ano
naman
yung nangyayari.
lahat-lahat.
Oo. Meron naman tayong local, meron naman
Yeah,
tayong international.
I told you before that the readers now are getting older, 49 to above of the English newspapers. Not necessarily our newspaper, but overall.
Yes.
So what is good is that advertising revenues are still there because
These are the people who can afford.
because the decision makers are 49 and
Yes.
above. And these are the fathers, the mothers, they're the ones who buy
The products.
that are being sold. So, as of the moment, the newspaper is still surviving and is still earning.
So what is your parting shot, Sean, to the viewers in terms of, number one, if they want to go into journalism, what characteristic traits should they possess? And number two, how responsible should they be when they start printing whatever they write?
For up-and-coming journalists, siguro think long and hard if you want to become a journalist.
Mudong hininga mo na.
Talagang think it over. Kung pakinggan nyo kung anong sinasabi ng puso nyo if you really want to become a journalist. Kasi, like Sir Jack said, medyo wala talagang pera dyan. Diba? So, if you want to be economically stable, you have to think about it. No? Kasi pwede namang maging part-time journalist ka lang and then you engage into business. But of course, overall, when you establish your career, you have to think it over. Over and over again until you get pwede naman ding pagpraktisan lang.
Sinabi mo nga kanina, it's a vocation. It's not
vocation.
just a passion. Kayo naman, Sir Jack, what is your message to the readers out there?
Continue reading newspapers. Because newspapers, you can bring it anywhere. You can bring it anywhere, and then it's cheaper, and you don't need electricity. And then
You don't need a gadget.
yeah, and then if you, for instance, if your name or your story, your picture in the newspaper, you can cut it and
Frame it.
print it, or if you can. You've got a lot of, you can use it as toilet paper.
So marami kang pwedeng gamitan. Dear viewers, remember this, that the print media, not just the print media, but media itself, the media industry, whether it's in the TV, it's in the broadcasting, whether it's AM and FM, or whether it's in the dailies or in the social media, each one of us should take into consideration the responsibility of sifting through the data that are being presented to us. And for those who are writing or who are broadcasting, it is your responsibility and duty to become sure of what you are saying and what you are writing. Credibility, passion, commitment to give the correct and balanced news at all times. In Ecclesiastes 3:15, it says, "Whatever is has already been, and what will be has been before." In other words, the print media will always be there to guide us and to give us the correct information we shall be needing. Magandang gabi po sa ating lahat.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Dong.